Real estate principles in comic books. We're talking investment strategy in this video. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swagglehaus. And in this video, I wanted to talk a little bit about these principles in real estate called progression and regression. Now, a lot of people in my family have always been in the real estate industry. And one of the things my parents used to tell me was that it's always better to buy the cheap house in the expensive neighborhood versus the expensive house in the cheap neighborhood. And that kind of got me thinking like, oh, okay, well, in terms of comic books, how does this principle apply? And that is, I guess, to say, buying on the lower end of hot books versus on the higher end of hot books, and what that means in terms of an investment. Now, before I get into that, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying my content. I've really been enjoying making these videos and I plan on doing a lot more. So hopefully you guys can support the channel by doing one of those things. All right, so with that being said, let's get into it. All right, so here we have this article I pulled up. This is a real estate article. It's called The Principle of Regression and Progression. I just kind of wanted to read you the definitions. The principle of progression states that the value of less expensive properties will increase when more expensive properties come into the area. Thus, if your home is worth $500,000 and it is surrounded by million-dollar homes, the value of your property will go up. The principle of regression states that the value of a more expensive property will decrease when less expensive properties come into the area. Thus, if your home is worth $500,000 and it is surrounded by $100,000 homes, the value of your property will go down. So what does that mean in terms of comic books? So, well, I guess what these principles would suggest in terms of collecting is that if you have a hot book, like let's say, what's a hot book right now? Amazing Spider-Man 300, and you have a lower grade version of that book, the sheer nature of everybody wanting to get their hands on that copy is going to inflate the prices of your lower end book, simply because it's just the desirability is so high. Granted, it's also going to inflate the high end because obviously people want those high end books that are in mint quality. But I think what these principles is saying in terms of an investment, what it took you to be able to get into having one of those books, let's say on the lower end, was less of a commitment in terms of a monetary value that you put into it than on the high end, and you presumably are getting a better return on your investment. Now, one thing I wanted to look at was an example. Recently, it was announced in the news that Jonathan Majors was going to be playing Kang the Conqueror. And what was interesting is that immediately when that news came out, that book sold like hotcakes. It was crazy in the market on eBay. Just overnight, I think 20 or 30 copies sold like instantaneously. It was really crazy. So I kind of wanted to look at that and apply these principles and see, if we were, day traders on the stock market and we wanted to buy this book before that announcement came out, and then we sold it or we flipped it right after, what would our returns be on that? So let's get into these numbers here. All right. So again, Avengers number 8, first appearance of Kang the Conqueror. It is speculated that Jonathan Majors will be playing him. As you can see, the numbers have spiked here if you were paying attention before. But we'll take a look at the analyzer, and you can see pretty much across the board here, green, right? Everything has gone up. Everything has gone up because people are hunting this book. So I pulled up on eBay. This is the sold items last Kang the Conqueror. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the announcement for Jonathan Majors playing him was on September 14th. So this is why you see here September 14th, 14. It was right here that everyone heard about the Kang book or Kang's announcement, and everyone started buying and buying and buying. So what I wanted to do is take a look at two books that coincidentally are placed right next to each other. Here we have a 3.5. This is on September 13th, so purchased before the announcement. 3.5 here, and then we have a 9.0. So this was on September 6th. So let's say that, perfect examples of a low grade ish book and a higher grade ish book. So let's pretend that we bought these two books. Now, if we were to purchase this, a 9.0 would have set us back $2,075. Conversely, the 3.5 would have taken us $212 plus shipping. Let's call it, I don't know, $240 or so, $250 maybe with tax, right? Something within those numbers. Now, so we purchased this book with this concept of getting into the neighborhood, right? We wanted to get into the neighborhood versus we wanted to buy our dream home. All right, now we flash forward. It's been announced. Jonathan Majors has been announced as Kang the Conqueror. And as we scroll down here we go. November 26th. Here's a 3.5 that sold for $450 plus shipping. So, maybe we can bump that up to $460, $470 maybe. And what was the number that we said before? It was around $240, $250. So we're looking at essentially doubled. That is almost just about, we'll just for the sake of argument, we're going to say that this is 100% increase on our money for having bought a 3.5, getting into the hot neighborhood. The neighborhood gets hot, and we flipped it the next month for double the money, 100% return on our investment. Now, let's keep scrolling down, and let's see. Here we have a 9.2, right? A 9.2, granted, it's not a 9.0, but it's somewhat close. So this is even going to be presumably more expensive, right? And what did this sell for? $3,161 plus 30 for shipping. Let's call it $3,200. So we went from $2,100 around to $3,200. Now that's about a slightly over 50% return on investment, but this is a 9.2. It's not even a 9.0. So maybe a 9.0. Let's, if we trimmed it a little bit here, down $100 or so, we're looking at around 50% return on our investment, as opposed to the 3.5 that gave us a 100% return on our investment. So I thought that was really interesting. These ideas, these principles of regression and progression, and what might be a better investment strategy. Granted, you're going to make higher overall dollar amounts on the high end of things. That's $1,200 that you're going to make on the sale of your 9 versus $200 on the sale of your 3.5. But there are reasons that you may want to use your these lower end books as the way to strategize when investing or speculating on things. So that was really, kind of what I wanted to put out. I know that that's just one example. This is just a small sample size. Maybe there's different ways to look at it, with different books in the market. But I thought that was really interesting, applying those principles, getting into the expensive neighborhood. And I think that this is a really awesome strategy overall. If you're into investing and speculation and flipping and that sort of thing, this might be the better way to do it, because the reality is, with these books, playing them like stocks, nobody knows anything, right? Nobody really knows. Like, oh, we all think Galactus is coming, we all think Kang the Conqueror is coming, but nobody really knows until it's too late to know, right? So it is all speculation. And with that being said, when diversifying your portfolio, so to speak, or putting your money into different places, going in on the lower end or the mid end not only returns, it has a higher value return on your investment, but it also is a more conservative approach, because that way you get to diversify. You can look at different books, and when one of them pops, that's the one you can cash in on versus going all in on one specific book. Not only that, but when we're talking about being able to flip it back to the market, on the lower end or the mid end, you're always going to have more buyers, because simply put, it's a cheaper book, and there's going to be more people that can afford purchasing it. So finding those buyers is always going to be easier than if you have, Amazing Fantasy 15, at a 9, and you need $1 million in order to get your value out of it, because how many people have $1 million that they could ever really spend on a specific comic book? So that's really, some of the pros that I look at when talking about this idea of regression and progression markets. So anyways, that's all I have for today with this video. Let me know what you guys think. How do you guys invest when you're looking at comic books? Do you think that these principles in real estate can apply to comic books, or do you think that it's really all about the high grades and that's really where you're going to make your killings and your riches? So anyways, who knows what we'll see? Who knows what books will be crazy next? But hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.